welcome to the pod. I am so happy today. I have had, actually, before I get into a life update, I'll just quickly tell you this episode is about the signs that you're going through a spiritual awakening. And that will be quite helpful. So anyway, life update. I have been having like a really big month as far as like energetic upgrades go. It's been intense to say the least. It's like I'm being flushed out of everything that I have learnt up until this point, and anything that's not serving me anymore, any blocks that I just don't need to carry, like that kind of thing. It's all being flushed out to, you know, be put to bed with 2023, and I'm like not taking it into 2024. And it's just been something I'm really grateful for simultaneously, but also just like fucking hard. It's been intense. I've been exhausted and have had no energy to do anything. Like usually I record like 2 to 3 pod eps a week, and I've been doing 1 a week, which feels like 1 a year for me. I feel like I haven't talked to you guys in so long and it's been 7 days. Anyway. So, signs that you're going through a spiritual awakening, even if you're not spiritual, really. So this will be different for everyone. This is what it was like for me. And obviously, like if you're listening to this, you might be like, oh yeah, like a similar things happened to me or whatever. So sort of like take my experience with a grain of salt, and it might just sort of help you understand yourself if you're going through a spiritual awakening, or if you're in a place in life where you're like, oh, everything's changing and I don't really know what's going on and I'm just feeling a little bit like, you know, lost. This could be what's happening to you. So anyway, I'm just going to go through everything that I wrote down. So I keep like a spiritual awakening journal. I keep lots of different journals for different things. And my spiritual awakening journal has been actually amazing. And I started keeping it because I was like, I'm going to want to look back on this. I was like, you know, because, you know, so many things happen and so many things were happening. I kind of rocketed into mine. People go through them at different paces. Sometimes, you know, someone will go through a spiritual awakening over the course of a few years, and sometimes someone will go through one in like a month, and like it's different for everyone. The faster it is, the harder it is, I think, because you just like have to get used to so much change in such a shorter period of time. But then that's not to say it's not hard for long, slow ones, because like the hard parts are quite grueling. And imagine going through that for like a long period of time. My heart goes out to those folks. So here is what I kind of just like dot pointed everything from my spiritual awakening journal up until this point. So the signs that you're going through a spiritual awakening. You start to see things in your mind, or you'll be picturing them or whatever, or thinking of something, and then it just happens in real life. So I had, for example, I remember a time when Noah left for school and he was like, hey, bye. And he walked downstairs, and like I had this insanely strong vision and feeling. I was like, he's about to come back up and walk through the door. I just saw it clear in my mind's eye. And the next, you know, he just like comes back up and walks through the door. And I was like, what? So like little things like that, like that's not a big deal. But when that starts happening again and again, you're just like, fucking, what is happening? And it's like kind of like you're seeing little snippets into the future, basically. Your senses are expanding wider and further out from your body, and in a way that you've never really experienced before. So that's pretty cool. And then something kind of really big might happen in your life that either knocks you down or like a big change of direction takes place. So for me, it was like everyone was dying at once and the house was flooding, and, you know, just tragedy after tragedy. It was but because it took a lot to get me to sit the fuck down. And I'm not saying all these bad things happen just so I can go through a spiritual awakening, but you know, you're put on a path, right? And you're put in alignment with these other occurrences that are going to happen on their own journeys and their own paths. And you're put in the family that you have for a reason. Like you're put, like your life is the way it is for a reason. So, you know, like all of this was going to happen one way or another in kind of its own way, but it all unfolded because of the choices that, you know, you make along the way. And so every choice that you make, which you have like absolute free will to do, will affect the outcome. But at the end of the day, some things are going to kind of always happen, I feel anyway. So anyways, it's like I'm the sort of person who would just, back then anyway, would keep going through hardship, even if, you know, it felt like, oh, I just really need to stop. I really need to like slow down. I need to reassess. I just thought like, if I stop, I'll die. So I just kept going. And because I moved through life at such a hectic pace, I feel like it took all of that happening in this short amount of time to actually knock me down long enough to see and look around and be like, oh, reassess. Like, you're not going down the right path anymore. It's time to change course. So I'm not saying it's going to be like that hectic for everyone. Maybe it's a breakup. Maybe you're like, I can't work this job anymore and I have to change it. And this opportunity comes up and it's something so different to what you would normally ever imagine, but you take it because you're like, why not? Like, who knows what the thing is? It's different for everyone, but usually there is something that will rocket you like kind of off the course that you're on and onto a new one. Now, when that happens, it can be incredibly hard. It can be some of the hardest, most challenging time in your life up until that point. And for some people, it's not. Like, I have a friend who has been going through her own version of this, and her version of it is so light and uplifting, it's not even funny. But like, that's where she's at. Like, she's already a really high vibrational being. And, you know, she's probably already had like so many lives before this point where she's had to go through a lot of hardship to learn everything she's learned to be able to get to this place so early in her life. So watching her go through it, I'm like, wow, like this is a version of a spiritual awakening I've literally never seen before. And yeah, so it's like different for everyone is the point basically. But big change is a thing that will usually occur. And you start to sort of feel like you need to seek help, but you kind of have the sense that like, because, you know, maybe you go to therapy or whatever, but you're like, oh, I just don't think traditional therapy is it. Like, it's just not the right vibe. Like, you feel like you need something different, like you need something more. And then you start to be like, even if you're not woo-woo, like you start to go like, oh, like maybe I need like Reiki or something, or like maybe I need to go see a psychic, or you just suddenly start to be like, maybe there's more than I've realized this whole time. And yeah, so then you start to read a lot more like self-help books. You start to learn about a bit of science and a bit of spirituality, just like you want to know more about how you work and how you exist to sort of make sense of yourself, which is really cool. Then I would say, what is the next one? You start waking up randomly at like odd hours of the morning between like 1 and 4 a.m., sometimes in like a hot sweat, sometimes like just in a jolt, other times just like you wake up and you're like, why the fuck am I awake right now? This isn't like me. And it's always around those kind of hours. I don't really know what to say about that. It happened heaps for me. And usually there would be something like my hands and feet would be really tingly, and they tingle now in that way when I'm doing Reiki or tapping into my energy or tapping into like someone's channel and stuff. But back then, like I didn't know any of that. I hadn't experienced any of that yet. I hadn't learned anything about my energy in that kind of way. So I just remember like waking up in the middle of the night being like, oh my God, my hands are on fire. Again, different for everyone, but usually there's a bit of waking up that happens. Your inner voice starts to become a bit more noticeable. So you start to sort of like have more defined conversations with yourself instead of just like inner noise and random like dialogue going on or just thoughts. It's more clear. It's almost like your higher self basically starts to get a bit more of a clear angle into your human self and can speak to you in a way where you're like actually listening to your higher self and connecting in with yourself. And then you start to be like, like maybe I'm wiser than I thought. And like, maybe I can trust myself. Like maybe I'm guiding myself in the right kind of way. So when you hear that voice come through, like that is your higher self. Like that's your that's you getting downloads. That's you receiving information that you need to receive. Like your higher self will speak to you in this voice that kind of cuts through the noise. It's just like, what are you doing? Don't do that. Or like, yes, you can totally do this. Or like, you are so fine right now. Don't stress. Or, have more gratitude in this moment. Or like, you're learning a lesson right now. Like whatever the thing is, like it kind of cuts through the rest of the noise. And it's always in your own voice. It's not in some like random voice. It's your voice. It just has more authority and it has more wisdom behind it. And it sounds different to like your human sort of monkey mind that just chatters on. Anyway, so that starts to become a bit more clear and you start to notice it and start to listen out for it, which is cool. And your dreams might start to feel like they have a bit more meaning behind them. Like, I don't know about you, but I dream very infrequently. Even before I was on, because I'm on medicinal marijuana in lieu of ADHD meds. And I have heard from a few people now that smoking weed makes you dream less. But even before then, I didn't ever really have a lot of dreams. I've had very few dreams. Anyway, but when I do have the ones that come through, like they feel sometimes so like real that I'm like, did that happen in real life? And then I'm like, no, that's so bizarre. Like, well, that's crazy. But then I'm like, did I like go off into some other dimension in dreamland and actually do that? Because like I feel like I did. So your dreams start to become a little bit more like either a lesson or you feel like you're just living in this other fucking dimension at nighttime sometimes, every now and then, not all the time. I don't know. It's different for everyone. This other thing happened as well, and this has started to happen more and more, but Justin was telling me about a dream that he had where aliens came to the Gold Coast and they were on top of a really high, like tall high-rise building. And I was the only person that they would talk to. He was like, you were just so pure of heart. And he was like, you were the protagonist of my dream. He's like, I wasn't even the main character, you were. And he was like, you had this like really pure heart and you were a pure being and you had no hidden agenda, no motives behind anything except to just learn more about what's happening. And so they only spoke to you and you went up there and, you were having a nice conversation with them. And then Morty from Rick and Morty rocked up and said something really fucking dumb. And then they got really mad and then they started attacking and you had to like come down and then we were like running into like a parking garage underground and all this stuff. I was like hanging on to his story like fucking whoa, because I could see it clear as day. I could picture everything that he was saying from his dream as if I'd been there. Like it was so clear. Even now it feels more like a memory than like having listened to someone else's story. It's so bizarre. And now like since that time, like that was the first time I'd noticed that kind of thing happening. And then like now when a friend is telling me something that they've been picturing or that they've seen in their third eye or a dream they've had or a, place they've been, I can picture it so clearly that when I tell it back to them, like even if they don't tell me in as much detail and I say the thing in way more detail, they are like, oh my God, that's literally it. And then I started to have these downloads about that happening, that occurring. And I was like kind of getting this information that when that happens, you're actually just tapping into someone else's channel. Like you're sharing a channel for a moment. You can see what is in their mind's eye kind of thing. Obviously, you have to have a pretty clear and strong channel to be able to do that and vibrate at a higher frequency, but that is absolutely what everyone has the ability to do, in my opinion, from my experience, obviously. Then you start to see synchronicities everywhere. So also this doesn't happen in this exact order, by the way. This could happen in like all kinds of different orders, You might see synchronicities before anything changes in your life. Like who fucking knows? Anyway, I'll get back to it. So you start to see synchronicities everywhere. So like angel numbers, and you start to say, think of someone and then they'll text, or you'll have like a hint inside you, like, oh, I just really craving mango right now. Like I need mango. I really got to get my hands on mango. And then you're walking down the street and some street fruit shop guy is like, mango, get your mango. And then you have this like really strong feeling inside you. You're like, what? Like how many signs are pointing to mango right now? I think I need to go there and like be in that store for a moment. And then like you run into someone and you're like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like synchronicities, like things that are just like, is this like a fucking coincidence or what? And then you're like, no, like the universe is just fully lining all this stuff up to happen, or to show you that you're on the right path, or to nudge you in a direction, or to like let you know that, hey, even though you're going through something right now, it's all for the better. Just trust. Like there's so many different things that can come through. Okay. And then another thing that happens is you might start to get like a ringing in your ears or ear. Lots of people have different experiences about this. Some people say like, you know, if you get a ringing in your left ear, it means your guides are trying to talk to you. I don't know. I can't actually remember. I could be completely wrong. This is an example. And if you get a ringing in your right ear, it means like a spirit is trying to talk to you, blah, blah, blah. I don't fucking know. That's not how it happened for me. I started to get like a vague ringing in my ear every now and then. And I was like, oh no, I'm getting tinnitus. Oh man. Then I was like, I don't really go out or do anything. Pretty random to suddenly get it now. Like, why would I, you know? And I thought maybe it's got a lot of stress in my life. So if I remove stress, like maybe this will go away. And it was in a time where I was like, you know, getting rid of the business and just sort of like, I was removing the stress, but I had so much stress to remove that it was like fucking such a process. Anyway, but then the ringing kind of got stronger and stronger the further I went into my spiritual awakening. Like the more things that started happening and the more I started learning about myself, the louder the ringing got. And it was always in both ears. And it never sounded annoying. It never sounded bad. It sounded like a million pieces of tiny, tiny glitter hitting like a glass tabletop all at different times. It sounded like a symphony and a cacophony all at once. It was like quite beautiful, never annoying. And it actually made me feel like I wasn't alone. I don't know if that sounds insane, but anytime it got really loud and almost all encompassing, I was like, I'm not alone right now. I've got like a guide with me. And I just felt protected by it. Even if I was having like a stressful time trying to fall asleep, I would listen to it and it would kind of lull me into a sleep. And then I was listening to a episode of the Spirit Speakers podcast. I don't remember which episode, so I'm really sorry, but they were talking about things that happened when they had spiritual awakenings. And one of them was talking about hearing universal sounds and learning that like she was tapping into the frequency of the universe. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And then when I was having this sort of meditation situation later on, when I really started like rocketing into my, like the depths of my spiritual awakening, when things were just like too fucking crazy for me to even comprehend initially, I had this like meditation where my higher self was teaching me all of the things that I'll be kind of was able to do with my energy and all of that. It was so wild. And I learned in that moment that when the pitch changes and goes really high, it means that I'm raising my frequency and I can send like love or messages out. I can kind of connect further into other people's channels and stuff like that when I'm hearing that pitch change. So I was like, that's cool. I don't know if that's for everyone. Not a clue. That's just my experience. So hopefully that helps. And then what else happens? So your mind's eye vision starts to get clearer. So like when I'm meditating, I used to close my eyes and see initially just other eyeballs. That's why I paint eyeballs on my paintings so much, because I close my eyes and it's like I see an eye really clearly, an eyeball, and then I'll zoom through that eyeball and then I'm in another eyeball and then I zoom through that eyeball and I'm in another eyeball, and it just like keeps going like I'm going through a portal or something through like my inner eye. And like I always realize, like, oh, that's the other thing. When I was learning about meditation and about using your mind's eye and everything like that, I was like, how do you access that? Like, what's it like? Like, what is that even? Tell me more, you know? And I learned through, I guess, just like a few realizations and probably reading some books and stuff as well, that, so I always call it, I got this from Sonia. She calls it Planet B. And I was like, oh my God, that's what it's like. I've always said like I go to another planet, but she just calls it Planet B, as in like Bumblebee. But also like Earth is Planet A and the place inside your mind's eye is Planet B. So cute. I was like, I'm obsessed with that. So we call it Planet B. And it was the way that we would relate to each other, talking about like when you were just like, because we both have ADHD, right? And like when you've got ADHD, and everyone does this, but when you have ADHD, you just do it so fucking frequently. Like you skip off to like basically another dimension in your mind and you're just like living this complete real feeling, like sensory experience where you're like, you can see everything so clearly and time passes and you don't even realize, and you're just like, in this beautiful place in your mind. And you're like, that's the place in your mind's eye where you're receiving downloads. Like, I learned that this whole fucking time I was actually learning so much, getting so much inspiration. I was getting downloads, receiving information and guidance, and having like realizations and everything, just like by being in Planet B and daydreaming. Like, that is literally where you go to see the other side, quote unquote, like the, you know, the higher realms, where you access this information, where you see these visuals, like that's the place in your mind's eye where you access memories, right? So if you pull up any memory you feel like right now and you can see it in your mind, that's the place you go where you want to see visuals and where you get downloads. And when you're meditating, when like, it's not the same for everyone. I imagine like everyone's brain will work differently, but if your brain's like mine, this will probably help you. So the visuals stopped being like just flying through eyeballs. Like, I still go through eyes and I still see eyes, but now like I'll land somewhere and I'll like see so much more than even before. And I am like going on like a journey if I'm meditating. Like, I literally feel like I go somewhere and I learn something. I meet up with beings and people and guides and all kinds of stuff. It's pretty cool. Anyway, next thing. You start to appreciate nature and all of the living beings in it so much more. So you become more heart-centered for all. This is really beautiful and such a thing. I have, like, I still eat meat, which bugs me. I'm getting there, guys. But like, the thing is, like, I think about it and I'm like, I hate the dairy industry. I hate the meat industry. It's so bad for the planet. It's so sad for the animals. We don't need to even eat that much meat. Like, everyone's different and we'll all like sort of hail from different parts of the earth, like genetically, like leading back to like, you know, prehistoric kind of times. Not prehistoric, but do you know what I mean? Like, what am I talking about? Like early man kind of thing. Like, there were people who lived in areas where they only had fruit and veg and stuff like that. They were like only herbivores, and there were people who like only had meat to eat. So more cold climates, they were only like carnivores and stuff. And there were people who were omnivores. And so there are traits like that are still in us to this day. So people will lean more towards one or the other or whatever. So again, it's like a personal preference and everyone's, you know, different. But I just think that the overconsumption of it is something that's like insane. We don't actually need to eat that much of anything really. And we don't it's just crazy. Like, we don't need, like, there's so much waste and so much pain and there's so much bad happening to the planet just for the fucking meat and dairy industries alone. Like, it's wild. Very bad for the environment. And I think about this a lot and I'm just like, I don't like to do anything in extremes. Like, I like to have balance with everything. And I don't think that I would ever be like vegan and be really strict with it. I don't think I would ever be like just a carnivore. Like, you know what I mean? I don't think anything should be that black or that white. I think that you just got to listen to your body and go with the flow that your energy is in and whatever it is that you're craving at the time. And like, this is, again, just me. But yeah, I don't like to do anything extreme. I like to just listen to my body. But I still feel like I'm going against one of my values when I eat meat. I just think like it'd be better if we were just sort of like hunting our own meat or something like that. Not that I want to hunt. I couldn't fucking do it. Can't even pull a fish off the end of a line. It makes me so sad. But anyway, there's better ways to do it all. Anyway, so I'm finding myself like picking up an ant and carrying it outside. I'm looking at birds and talking to them. Like, I am obsessed with nature. I always loved nature. Like, I've always found myself trying to be outside in it. I've always been like a child of the earth kind of person, but it's like next level now. Now that I have this like unity feeling with the universe, I'm like, it all matters. And yes, animals will kill each other and it's a cycle of life and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'll still squish a bug every now and then as my first reaction. But for the most part, like, I'm really sort of just finding myself shifting into this like, it's like I'm hyper aware of nature. It's really beautiful. and I just care about everything, and I'm in a heart space more. And that's the other thing, like you start to have way more compassion for everyone and everything around you. Even if you're like, wow, that person did something bad, you have this like deep understanding come through of why they did it. And that gives you a broader understanding of the world, and it kind of helps you remove a lot of like upset and anger and, you know, confusion and everything, because you just have this understanding and this compassion of like, oh, well, this person's acting this way because they X, Y, Z. And sure, it doesn't mean you should allow them to hang out with you if they're in your life. You shouldn't go seek out the company of these people and like lower your vibration or anything to be around them. I'm just talking about people who are like doing horrible things. But you have more understanding and more compassion and more desire to like help and sort of help shift people out of that place if you, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, where am I in my list? We learn to love ourselves and all of life's lessons that brought us to this moment. So this is a really big one. So I used to think that there was like something wrong with me physically. I was always like whinging about my body in one way or another. Didn't like it. Didn't meet up to social media's standard of looking like Kylie Jenner. So I was like, obviously I'm a piece of shit. And I didn't have enough self-worth to get past my physical state. And I didn't like the way that my brain worked because I didn't know I had ADHD. And I like just was like, oh my God, Esther, you're a fucking mess. You're always a letdown. You're always flaky. You're always XYZ. I would just see the negatives that society kind of put on me when I was younger. And that's just, you know, I still found joy in everyday moments. And I still knew I was like, you know, a privileged white woman who was like generally pretty. I still knew that I like wanted to follow my heart and do the things that I wanted to do. And I would follow those things. But at the end of the day, I still had all these like massive insecurities and was still blaming my life and myself and all kinds of things. Then I like, you know, started going through this like hectic, deep work and was like, wow, everything was meant to happen to get me to this place, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Everything that's ever happened to me that has been really hard, and I've had a really big life already, and I've done a lot, and I've had a lot of hardship. I started to feel grateful for all of it, because I was like, well, without that, I wouldn't be here. And I love where I am right now. I love everything I know. I love everything I'm experiencing. I'm so, so grateful for everything, even the family I was put into, even like all the troubles I was having with my dad, like all of it. I was like, it makes sense now. Like all of that had to happen. I had to learn every single one of those things to get me to where I am. And then I'm like, fucking, I love myself. And so I love all of those things. Do you know what I mean? Like what a fucking revelation. So that's a nice place to arrive to. Then you start to look back at your childhood when things seemed a bit more magical, and you start to be like, when I thought I was levitating that time, was I? I asked my psychic. She was like, yeah, you were. And I asked my mum, I was like, Mum, do you remember me running out just being like, Mum, I was levitating? I didn't say levitating, I said floating. But I was like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And she shut me down. And then she was like, yeah, she's like, I was thinking about that recently. And then I can't remember what the general conversation was, but we were talking about it. And she was like, I really wish that I didn't shut you down on that. She's like, you very well could have been floating, and I just told you you weren't. And then she was like, maybe the reason that you can't float now is because I told you couldn't. I was like, Mom, I love you. She's so cute. But anyway, when you're a little kid, you're so like fresh. You're fresh from the universe. You know what I mean? You're fresh in your body. You have so many more abilities, so much more like insight into the world. You're able to be way more free before we kind of fucking box ourselves in and we're forced to behave in a certain way to fit into society and kind of crush all of that out of ourselves and out of our kids and blah, blah, blah. So you kind of like have these memories pop through again when you're little, and you're like, I wonder if I really did that. Or like, I wonder if that really happened. Or I wonder if I was actually speaking to that fairy, or like that person that popped up in my hallway. Was that guy really there with the long jacket and suitcase and the hat? Yes, he was. Terrifying. Anyway, that's a story for another day. Then you start to go deeper into your inner child and your shadow intentionally, because you realize that that's the gateway to your higher self, like that and stillness. So you start to meditate more, and you also start to do your inner child work and your shadow work like it's nobody's business, because you're like, well, on the other side of this is everything I've ever wanted. So I'm going to tackle all the hardest parts of my life and myself, face myself in all of the ways that I'm afraid to, and just learn everything I can about myself and hold myself with love, and just hold myself above, you know, this version where I was previously beating myself up about all these things or trying to avoid them, or, like taking part in things like maybe drinking or whatever it is to make you forget the situation, like you start to face all of it. You're like, fuck it, rip the Band-Aid off. I want to see it all, because I know that when I get through this, I'm going to raise my frequency higher and have that appreciation for it. And it's not going to rule my life in an unconscious way anymore. It's going to be something that I can sort of put in a tool belt instead. So you start to do all of that work. And when you're doing that work, you then start to prioritize spending time alone. And then like you're going through all this hard shit and you're feeling a bit isolated, but you're like, I don't want to be around all those people who are in a totally different vibe and a totally different frequency. It's like you can't even hold a conversation with them properly when you're going through this stuff, because you're just like, what the fuck do we have in common right now? Like, they're talking about things and you're like, none of that matters. You're like, I'm understanding the secrets of the universe right now and I'm pulling myself to absolute pieces, and someone's talking about what they bought from some shop and you're like, I don't care. Or you're just like, they don't understand. Or you're like, I don't have the energy. Just don't have the fucking energy to go be around a bunch of people and like put any kind of mask on. And because you're still learning how to get around without your mask, like you feel a bit raw and you're like, I just need to figure out who I am properly before I go back out into the world. And you start to feel like you're losing everyone and you're making choices to walk away from people. And sometimes people are walking away from you, and you start to just feel like, what the fuck, is something wrong with me? But also you wouldn't want to be anywhere else. You're like, you just can't seem to not do the work when you get to this point. You're like, I have to pull myself apart. I have to unravel. I have to find out who I am. I have to learn all these things about myself and about the universe and get these good practices into place. And then when you do that, you sort of like, you just drift away from the vibration that you were in previously. It's like you can't go back or something. Like, yeah, you might have those people back in your life and you might start to hang out with them if they're beautiful people, whatever. But energetically, you can't go backwards. So it's like this version of yourself moves into this new sort of frequency, and none of the baggage can come with you. You can't go back and grab it anymore once you've worked through it. It's great. Like you have this like totally different version and awareness, and yeah, it's a big, deep, painful, sometimes isolated, sometimes kind of time, but you will get through it if you're in that, or if you do go into that place, like don't be alarmed. It's all part of the journey and you will get through it. Just keep doing things that feel good. Follow what feels good. If you're like, oh, I just need to like walk outside barefoot every day, do it. I need to start having turmeric every day, do it. I need to journal, do it. Like you want to go swim in the ocean every day, fucking do it. Whatever it is that feels good when you're going through that, do that. Follow that. Just keep your values and your actions aligned. Because then eventually you sort of learn all this stuff and then you want to turn around and you want to teach it to everyone. You get to this place where you're like, everything I know right now is the most amazing thing ever. Holy fuck. This is insane. Everyone needs to know about this. And then you do turn around and you teach it to your friends or whoever you feel that's drifted into your life that feels like they're on the same kind of frequency. Maybe they're going through the same kind of thing. Maybe they're a couple of steps behind, and you can turn around and be like, hey, here's what I've literally just gone through that's going to help you. Or maybe you meet someone who's doing that for you. Maybe it's just you having found my podcast and I'm doing that for you. You know, this is literally what I'm doing right now. Turning around and being like, guys, here's what it's like when I went through my spiritual awakening, in case it helps you. So when you do that, then you start to like turn around and like teach it to other people, you become really magnetic. It's like you're giving one of the greatest gifts that you can give. And the universe is like giving back to you by bringing these people into your life that you have these really rewarding interactions with. You have these beautiful friendships with people who are on the same frequency as you. And you start to feel like, oh my God, like an abundance of people is coming into my life. An abundance of knowledge is coming into my system. An abundance of appreciation and gratitude is just circulating through my every fucking cell in my being. It's so amazing. And you just start to really feel like, wow, all of that turmoil was worth it. So you learn about your skills and your abilities and everything, and then you sort of gravitate towards guides and healers who can help you understand them. So, you know, you might find yourself gravitating towards me because I'm helping you understand like this sort of spiritual or self-awareness side of your journey, that kind of thing. Or maybe you start going to see a psychic and you're like, hey, I'm starting to feel like tingles in my hands. And they're like, hey, maybe you should do a Reiki course, understand a bit more about Reiki. Maybe, because like for me, I was like, my psychic was like, do a Reiki course. You need to get your Reiki certificate. She was like, I'm not really sure exactly what you'll do with it, but I know that you need to get your Reiki certificate. So I did that, and I've been doing Reiki on friends and stuff. And I've realized, because at first I was like, maybe I want to do Reiki and that's the thing I'm going to do. Tried it on for a minute and I was like, nah, not for me. But I do Reiki on my friends because it helps me learn way more about my energy, and I can do it on myself too. So I do self healings. And I keep my energy in check and balanced and everything this way. So it was really, really helpful to do. And I learned so much about my energy. So you'll learn more things about yourself. You'll start to learn what your sort of clairsenses are. So like clairvoyance, that kind of thing, claircognizance, clairaudience. I don't remember what the other ones are called. But there's a book called Medium Mentor. She goes through all of those. It's a good book. I recommend that. Anyway, I can't remember who it's by, sorry. Medium Mentor. Anyway, so you'll start to feel like your senses heightening in certain areas. And so these will be like your clair senses strengthening. And these are the things that you'll lean on when you're wanting to get guidance from the universe, when you're wanting to tap into someone else's channel to understand something or help them through something, or your own channel, that kind of thing. So like you start to receive messages from the universe and from your guides and everything through these senses. And the ones that you will use will strengthen. So we all have the ability for all of our senses to be heightened. But you'll find that maybe you have some that are stronger than others. So for me, my inner sight is really strong. My inner knowing is really strong. So like information just drops in and I'm like, I just know it to my core through and through. Don't even need to Google it. I know it's true. And if I do Google it, I'm like, yep, that's true. Like this inner knowing, it's amazing. And I hear things as well, like the sounds, like the sounds of the universe kind of thing. I can hear sometimes like a really strong inner voice will come through. So those are probably my strongest ones. Yeah. Then you start to become really clear on your purpose on earth. So like everything starts to make sense. You start to really follow like what feels good, what feels right for you. And then you get to this place where you're like, oh my God, like I know what I want to do. I know. Even if you're not sure exactly what it looks like, you know the feeling behind what it is that you want. So I've always had this feeling of like, oh, the world's just doing it wrong. So many people need to do it differently. Why is everyone behaving like this? Why is society structured like this? Why is everyone okay with it? What's going on? I was like, can everyone see what I can see? And if they can, are they just ignoring it? Like what? Like I've had that my whole fucking life, but I didn't realize I could actually do anything about it because I didn't realize the power within me. And now I'm like, holy fuck, I can do anything. I'm an incredibly powerful being. And my life is only going to get even bigger and more fucking insane in amazing ways every year. Like I'm going to be achieving the thing that I want to do. Like I want to help Earth correct course. I want to help people understand themselves. I want to help everyone become more self-aware, because when you're more self-aware, you're more compassionate towards one another. I want to help people connect in with their own inner power. I want to help people trust themselves. I want to help people get to this version of themselves that where I'm at now, because I know what I can do with what I have now. And I know with like when you all are in this place and you know what you can do, or even if maybe you are in this place already and you're just like, fuck yes, sis, like this is so relatable or whatever. Like you know the impact of your being and your life on earth. And that's huge, because I think like before I got to this place, I thought that I was so like insignificant and my actions were inconsequential. Didn't realize the ripple on effect that happens from me just opening my fucking mouth and speaking on this podcast. Like it's incredible the power that you have, guys. And so you get to this place where you understand your power, you understand what you're made of. And then you're like, wow, I can do good with this. Obviously, there are people out there who realize they can do bad with it. That's not great. But, you know, us light workers, we got to just keep following the good, keep following the high vibrations, and we will change the world. Big change will come. I'm so excited for Earth. It's going to be on a healing track soon enough. Anyway, I digress. So you start to give up control and you start to trust the universe, but then you trust that it will lead you to where you need to go. This is a really big one. I did a big painting about this like 6 months ago, where you just like, there's this little dude and he's like trust falling into the universe and he's like holding on to everything and he lets go of it. And he's just got to trust. And it says in the bottom corner of it, like, it's okay, just let go. And it's a fucking terrifying feeling. You feel sick and anxious and you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing right now, but I know I cannot move forward in this direction any longer. And I have to just like make this change and I don't know what to expect. And there's like literally nothing behind me to fall back on. You just have to trust that the universe is going to catch you and that you're making the right choice. And you do it because you're like, I just feel like I fucking have to. Like in a way where it's like no pressure from anyone else. Like you just feel like inside you have to do this thing or whatever it is. Or you're like, I just need to do something to change my life. And you do this, you take this action and you make this choice. And then you feel like your trust falling because there's this period of time where it's like you just have to sit in that discomfort and that anxiety. And you've got to like stop resisting it and just lean into it and be like, all right, this is just where I fucking am right now. And that's okay. This is what happens when you make a really big change and you trust. And then, you know, the universe catches you and you realize that it was absolutely the right choice to make. And you realize that you should trust yourself and you should trust the universe and you should keep following that feeling, that internal guidance of like, yes, I know I need to move in this direction. I've got to take this step. And, you know, you do it again. And then you're like, wow, it worked out well again. And then you're like, whoa. And you start to chase that feeling almost. You're like, wow, this feels fucking incredible. It feels so incredible to just trust and to put one foot in front of the other and not really know exactly where you're going and just to watch it all unfold, kind of like becoming the observer of your own life, just being like, look at me go. I didn't know I was going to be here podcasting. This is so fucking random. Like, I love it. I love every minute of this, but this is the result of just taking step after step after step. Trusting the universe is taking me exactly where I need to go and making hard choices as well. So I do recommend getting to that point. It's very fun. It's terrifying, but it's really fun. And then you start to want to like, you know, be more vulnerable. You start to want to really rip off the layers of yourself and be like, because you learn along this journey that who you are is the thing that you're here to do. You know what I mean? Like you're just meant to be yourself because you will have this internal guidance system. You'll have these pulls towards specific things that really like feel good for you. You'll have these like abilities. You'll be able to create beautiful things. Like if you spend time on yourself and you spend time leaning into yourself and who you are and everything, you get to this point where you realize that you are the gift that Earth needs in your general area, like wherever it is that you situate yourself, you're going to affect the lives of everyone around you in a really positive way if you're living in your true authentic self. And that's going to teach them to do it. And then they'll do it and it will teach other people to do it. And the ripple on effect of you just being yourself is fucking massive. But it takes so much work to get to the place where you feel okay being yourself, because we live in a world that kind of teaches you to be anyone but yourself because it benefits capitalism if you're buying things to make yourself feel better because you hate yourself or whatever. So going through this sort of like internal work that it takes to learn to be yourself and to learn to be comfortable with yourself and to learn to be okay with ripping off the Band-Aid and just, you know, being yourself out loud, like that takes a lot of courage and a lot of guts. And when you do it, it feels amazing. And so that's another thing I always try and help people with is just like lead by example. Just be yourself out loud. Be fucking honest wherever you can. Be yourself. Like it's so cliche, but it's like, what else are you here for? What the fuck else are you doing on earth if you're not being yourself? Who the fuck are you being? Like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? It's so wild that we don't even realize the importance of that. Like we're not even taught that in school. Like, oh my God, so much of the world needs to change. Holy shit. I can't even think about it all at once. Anyway. So yes, the trust and the love of yourself and the wanting to share that with others. Massive, massive thing. It's a great thing that comes from the spiritual awakening. And you start to really surprise yourself. You do things that you just like never thought that you would do. You're so grateful all the time. You're so abundant with everything. You're so like aware of everything. More guidance comes through from the universe. More wisdom pours through. More knowledge pours through. And I'm at this point now where, you know, I sort of felt for a minute there that I was on the other side of it all. I was like, yeah, I can really feel like it's all simmering down. It's all integrating. Like I feel very comfortable with my newfound abilities and my newfound like open senses and awareness and knowledge and all of this, like my new life, like my whole life is different now. And I was starting to feel like, yep, cool. Like I'm really feeling like it's integrated. It's all sort of simmered down. And then just like boots, like suddenly I'm back in this like spiritual awakening roller coaster. I'm like, oh, I wasn't out of it. And I am getting like I said at the start, everything's sort of flushing through. So it's like all of these lessons that I learned all year are coming back through for like a round two. Just like, hey, you sure you're done with this? Are you sure you got through to the bottom of all of this? Like, and it's happening rapidly. It's like water being poured down a drain or something. It's just like, Serena put this visual in my head. She was like, because she's going through a similar thing, like with her frequency and her vibration and everything. And she was like, it's almost like we're so clear right now, like so clear, so much guidance is coming through, so much wisdom, so much clarity and information and everything. But it's like heavy. It's very heavy and it's kind of mucky. And she was like, it's like a drainage system being flushed with the water of its own kind. Like, you know, there is mucky water in there still. So it's like the water is flushing through to grab on. She's like attracts like, that kind of thing. She's like, it's just going to grab on the rest of all of it and then flush through and it will just be clear. And I was like, that is exactly the visual. Like, that's what it feels like. So anyway, I can feel that that's lifting. I can feel the water starting to clear up now, literally in the last couple of days, which is really nice. I feel like I'm going to wake up January 1st and just be a new person. Oh, I'm excited. Anyway, so hopefully that has been helpful for you. I'll update you if more crazy shit on my spiritual awakening happens. There's been so much more, like, you know, if I went into each one of those topics in detail, we would be talking for like 10 hours. It's massive, the stuff that has happened. And I've got other episodes on it. So if you're new to the pod, go back to my earlier episodes. There's like a spiritual awakening one in there. And I'm going to leave you with that today. I love you so much. I hope you have a nice Christmas and a good new year, and just do things that feel nice for you. Listen to yourself. It's a pretty crazy time of year, so be slow if you feel like being slow. Just give yourself permission to rest. Don't put too much pressure on yourself right now. Like, whatever it is that you can do that you feel good doing, like, do it. If you want to fucking lay in bed all day, do it. Like, just let your body lead you through this time. And also, please share this podcast if you loved it and if it helped you and you think it's going to help people in your life. Definitely share it around. If there's something that you think of that would help get my podcast out there, hit me up, let me know. You can always leave a little message on the actual podcast app in Spotify. And my Instagram is Esters_universe, and so is my TikTok. And that is it. Have a great end of year. Bye, guys. Love you so much. Oh, I don't usually say that. That was so weird. Usually I'm like, love you, bye. Anyway, okay, bye.